Hello, and welcome to A Better Morning. I'm Heather Klein. We debate the trending topics in sports from a sports betting point of view. Let's welcome today's panel. Host of Her Story in the Making and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Head of content of Fantasy Alarm and award-winning host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Howard Bender. Fantasy Alarm lead NFL analyst and professional MLB All-Star Game handicapper, Andrew Cooper. And the man that everyone's pointing to, senior managing editor of Fantasy Alarm and host of the Quick Out Fantasy Football Show and Fantasy Alarm DFS shows, John Mpemba.
Woo!
Crowd goes wild.
All right. Yes. We're really just cheering because Corey Parsons not here.
I hear I have big shoes to fill here today. So.
Yeah, he
big,
makes the
big old clown shoes, maybe. Come on.
He makes the legend of Corey Parsons grows every time Corey opens his mouth and says he's a legend.
Yeah, the man of a million names, right?
That's right, dude. The fantasy exec.
Hey, he can't defend himself right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And John, we are happy to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here with you guys this morning. You know, I'm always watching the show in the morning. Now I'm excited to get on here and debate some trendy topics with all of you.
All right,
well, let's get to it, guys. With all the drama surrounding Dan Snyder and Emailgate, John Gruden is out for the NFL's blood. There are several parties that are being blamed, NFL executives, including oh my gosh, why did I just draw a blank?
Director DeMaurice Smith.
Director DeMaurice Smith.
No. Never mind. NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith and Dan Snyder. Who do you think is to blame for the email leak? Who? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is an interesting topic. For anyone who's seen shows like The Wire or any of these law shows, there's often this situation where you know somebody is doing something wrong, you know they're committing crimes, but there are some rules in place as to how you can catch them, how you can leak them. You know, if the evidence is tainted, then you throw out the entire case. But in this particular case, I don't care how they got to the evidence. I don't care how they figured it out. Once we've seen the evidence and we've seen the things that John Gruden had to say, and we already know all the horrible things that Dan Snyder has done, from, you know, cutting down all these trees to basically, you know, pimping out the cheerleaders for his own organization. I don't really care how the evidence came to be. So I don't really care who leaked the emails. I've seen the emails. They're horrible. These guys are horrible dudes. And being in the NFL is a privilege. And owning an NFL team is an absolute crazy privilege. So I'm just glad that it did get out so that we could clear these Goombas out.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Goodell or someone on his team who leaked the emails. But the fact is that it doesn't matter who leaked them. We saw him. The NFL has an image problem, and it's gone back all the way to how they treated Colin Kaepernick and continue to treat him. They've kind of been tone deaf and hypocritical in their handling of race issues and gender issues. And it feels like they're kind of just trying to put a Band-Aid on this and saying, see, we got the bad guys out, we're clear, when there's so much more that they need to address within. You can't expect to just put a sticker on the back of a helmet saying end racism and fire a couple people and just leave it at that. Leaking emails isn't justifying or exonerating the NFL's past bad actors. And in fact, it just keeps drawing more attention to them and showing how much dirt the NFL is actually covering up.
Yeah, I'm fine putting the blame on on anybody for leaking the emails. I think that it's Dan Snyder did it to deflect the attention away from him. Whatever the case may be, I think this is right here is a call to action against Roger Goodell, and I think that's what the inherent problem is right now with the NFL is that the problem goes all the way up to the commissioner and to the owners. We already know that it's this billionaire old school boys club. With all these like rich old white dudes who are sitting there running their teams, and the families have had the teams forever and ever. It's a problem because Roger Goodell is protecting them, because these guys are lining the pockets of Roger Goodell each and every year. So what's he going to do? He's always going to cater to ownership, and that's a problem because your commissioner is not an impartial party.
Yeah, listen, I agree with a lot that's been said here so far. The owners are the ones that continue to hire Roger Goodell and put him in the spot that he's been in. And I think the fact that John Gruden in those emails was speaking poorly of Roger Goodell likely, in my opinion, means that he's probably the one, or his office is probably the one that leaked that out. You know, he's someone that obviously is a bit sensitive. We've seen how he's handled other things in the past, especially when dealing with criticism. And the fact that someone like Dan Snyder probably was, like Howard said, you know, helping fund the Roger Goodell bankroll there, was doing what he could to sort of deflect away from some of the issues that the Washington football team was dealing with at the time. And now you're going ahead and putting all that focus and negative press on Gruden while that investigation is going on to sort of distract from what's really happening.
That's what it is a distraction.
Right. And it's a great one. And that's the thing about Roger Goodell. Like, people hate him and they're supposed to hate him. And that's what makes him so good at his job. That's why he gets paid so much money, because you have these situations where you don't want it to be on, like Rip brought it up yesterday, the Zeke Elliott situation. You don't want that to be on the player. You don't want that to be on the owner. What do? You have P.T. Barnum come in and make it into a big mockery. And then now it's Roger Goodell's fault, right? You don't want it to be Tom Brady versus the owners. It's Roger Goodell has the clown nose shirt, right? He's not supposed to be Abe Lincoln. He's supposed to be Vince McMahon. And he does an amazing job of deflecting everything onto himself and then turning it back and making it news stories. That's why Roger Goodell gets $1 zillion. He's amazing at being his job, and his job is to be like a clown garbage man.
Right. And that's a huge issue right there, is that your commissioner is somebody who should be representing all sides and should be able to look at things properly. And the problem is, I mean, Roger Goodell has one of the highest salaries in the world. Absolutely, in the world. And he continuously gets money back from teams for what he does, and ownership definitely lines his pockets, and he's willing to be that clown. He'll wear that clown nose, shit, I'll wear a clown nose if you're going to pay me millions and millions of dollars every year. I'll foot the blame for whatever you want me to foot the blame for if you're going to continue to pay me a ridiculous amount of money. And that's what we want in a commissioner. If you had a fantasy commissioner who was just taking kickbacks from the rest of your league and was being a pain in the ass, but hey, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. Like, would you tolerate that commissioner in your fantasy leagues? No, definitely wouldn't.
I'm going to try to do that.
Defending you, right? That's the big thing there. Goodell protects the owners, protects the organizations. Probably no commissioner has been under more fire in recent years than he has for the decisions that the league has made and how they've handled various incidents, and yet still gets hired, still gets renewed, still exists in the league.
I'm going to try that.
Kickstarter started there from getting the game. Clown knows how, 100%. You can blame me for anything and everything you want. I just want to see that $1 million check at the end. And I only need $1 million. Goodell's he's taking like double digits, right? He's taking tens of millions of dollars from the league, from the owners, and everything that goes on with being the commissioner of football. So yeah, you know what? I'll take $1 million. I'll be the giant clown nose of the fantasy industry, just as long as I'm getting paid.
Giants running back Saquon Barkley may be at risk of not suiting up in week 1 if he and the team cannot reach a long-term deal by Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. They are unable to reach an agreement, then Barkley won't be able to re-sign until after the 2023 season. Saquon has been offered a $10.1 million franchise tag, which he is yet to sign. Odds are plus 300 to hold out on game 1 of the regular season. Would you take that bet, or do you think the two parties will figure this out prior to the deadline? Britt, you're up.
Yeah, I don't think he holds out. There's too much at stake here, and we've talked about it at length about how it doesn't work out in the running back's favor to hold out. The odds for him to not hold out are actually at negative 500. So even Vegas is in on that train and that thought process system. What I will say is that it's interesting that the NFL Rumors Twitter account put out a tweet saying that the Giants offered Barkley a $13 million a year contract with $26 million guaranteed over the first 2 years. And then Barkley retweeted it with the cap emojis. So I don't even think they're close to getting a deal done, but he does need to talk to somebody like Melvin Gordon or Le'Veon Bell and ask them how well holding out worked for them. I think that this contract situation is indicative of how NFL teams view their running backs and the position, and they're not going to get paid.
Britt, I completely disagree with you. The last thing Saquon Barkley wants to do is go talk to Le'Veon Bell. That's the last thing we want to see. That would be a disaster. Le'Veon Bell is a moron. You might as well go ask for relationship advice from Antonio Brown. There's no way Barkley's going to hold out. The Giants know that they need him. He is going to be a linchpin to their offense. They need the running game. There's nobody on this roster that's going to be able to do what Barkley does. They will find a way to find a happy medium here and pay this guy. But holding out, yeah, like Britt said, Le'Veon Bell showed you just how stupid that is. Melvin Gordon showed you just how stupid that is. Don't be an idiot, Saquon.
Yeah, listen, I think he'll eventually sign probably the franchise tag and they'll negotiate maybe a longer-term deal at some point during the season. But that's what he wants. He wants a long-term security. He doesn't like these shorter deals. I don't even really think it's necessarily the money that is the big hang-up there, especially, again, if the more recent information out there is that they're kind of getting closer to what the initial asking price was. He wants a long-term deal. He wants a Christian McCaffrey-type deal. He's a guy that I think is certainly worth paying, but we've seen long-term paying this position hasn't really worked out for teams, and running backs that do get contracts eventually find themselves getting moved anyway. So when you're looking at the Giants franchise, you're looking at offense as it's situated right now. He's the most impactful player on that offense, and Daboll and that Giants organization should be looking to lock him up.
Yeah, he's going to sign it for two reasons. One, if you actually listen to what Saquon has said pretty much his entire career, he actually cares about his legacy. He said it from the very start that he wants to build a long-lasting legacy. He wants to be one of those guys. He believes he's kind of a higher tier of player, and he knows that being a Giant for life and not skipping a year are a huge part of that long-term legend that he's trying to build. And the other reason is he has no leverage, because the franchise tag is one of the stupidest parts of this game. It's a contract that's forced on people only if it underpays them, which is completely absurd. It's the only industry that you can do that in, and there's no KHL or LIV to run to. The franchise tag is un-American. That's what it is.
I would disagree saying that
God
it's
bless
un-American.
the USA.
Is it
USA? USA.
Is it unfair? Yes, absolutely. But as far as corporate and businesses go, which that's what NFL teams are, I mean, it makes sense. You want to squeeze as much juice from that as you can, and they're not willing to give him that money.
You make a good point, but I have another point. USA.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm gonna let you finish in a minute.
I'll tell you what I would like to see. I would like to see them get creative with this contract. Saquon wants the long-term security. The Giants want to see that they're not over-investing in a guy who's going to break down. So, you know what? Sign a one-year deal that's laden with in-season incentives. Like all of a sudden, if, week 6, Saquon Barkley is one of the top 5 rushers in the NFL, he's got the option to, to kick in this, whatever this clause is that's going to make it a 2 or a 3 year deal. If he gets to week 10 and he's healthy, then it kicks in as a multi-year deal, and it offers him that security, but it also offers the Giants security. But what you can do then also is you can say to Saquon, hey, listen, you have the option of turning it into this. If you think you're running healthy and you're running fine and it's week 8 of the regular season and you don't want to be locked in because now you think you can get even more than what we just offered you on the free agent market, well, then you don't kick in that option. They can be creative with this deal to make him happy for a 1 year, money contract with the option of it does, makes both parties happy moving forward if they can do it that way. I don't know if the NFLPA will go for it, but if
the players aren't happy with the franchise tag, they had opportunities to negotiate this when the last CBA, but instead they ratified the CBA and they can't renegotiate till 2030. So they're kind of locked in to these tags. Now, I would probably expect when that comes back around, the number of instances we've had where players recently refusing to sign or upset about the team's ability to franchise them, maybe that's something that's on the table at that point to remove from the system in general.
It's ridiculous. I look at the other sports when you have like your biggest star that's arguably the best player in his position, like Alexander Ovechkin. They said, whatever you want, it's yours. Shohei Ohtani is going to get whatever he wants. He's going to set the market. Saquon Barkley, they just straight up say you're not setting the market, even if you are arguably the best running back in the league. It's kind of silly, man.
Baseball has that with arbitration year, so they can keep guys like the top players in the game on their rookie contracts for like 7 years. They don't have to pay them anything.
Don't get me started
unless they
on
buy
that.
them out for the free agent years. But the power is with the team more often than not here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Thanks,
Najee
And I
Harris.
just wanna-
Goodell.
Najee Harris is not going to be a free agent until he's 29 years old.
Well, and I just want to make a point before we move on about the players ratifying that. I think that they were kind of strong-armed into doing that, because if they didn't ratify that, then they weren't going to play.
Right.
So I don't think that they
But
necessarily ratified it.
they had give and take, right? They negotiated some, they got a little bit. Obviously, they can't get everything they want. But I think maybe the next time around, given what we've seen with like Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, and other players in the past, getting these tags put on them, that it could be a pain point for them and a negotiation point the next time around.
Yeah, if anything, change the name of it, because they make it seem like, oh, you're our franchise player. Like, this is some honor. No player has ever been like, oh, thank you very much for the franchise tag. Like, or make it a long-term deal. Like, It's a franchise. You're making the guy the franchise player by making him play for 1 year. Silly.
So much for that franchise contract we were going to give Coop. All right.
I've already been tagged, and yesterday I got fined $600 on our other show.
You guys, yeah, you're racking them up. I've got the list right here.
Rockies catcher Elias Diaz has been trending in the news not only because he won the All-Star game and broke the 9-year losing streak for the NL and earned MVP honors as a first-time All-Star. He's also trending due to the MLB trade season. He's in the second year of his 3-year, $14.5 million extension with the Rockies. As Colorado is last in the MLB standings, GM Bill Schmidt has made it known that he would like to add pitching to the roster. Do you think the Rockies will trade Diaz to a club that could, in return, help them moving forward on the hill? Howard, you're up.
Oh, I get to go first with the Rockies, like one of the worst franchises in all of baseball. I mean, we can laugh and say what we want about the Oakland A's, but Jeff Bridich is running this. I think he's still in charge over there in Colorado. It's a disaster. It's an outright disaster. Yeah, they need pitching. Of course they need pitching. They need high strikeout pitchers, and they need heavy ground ball pitchers. All right, they're never going anywhere unless they do that. But listen, they've pulled in contracts and signed players stupidly over the years, and they can never put it together. This franchise is a joke. Diaz should be traded. Everybody on that roster should be traded. They need to throw it all away, and they need to start the hell over, because this team is never going anywhere. It's an outright mess, and it starts from the top all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, listen, obviously a team that needs to kind of replenish what they got going on within their system and their actual major league roster, but Elias Diaz isn't going to bring an impact player, and he's another guy that historically just hit well in cores. If you're looking at his split stats on the year, he's hitting 230 on the road. Organizations see that. They realize what kind of player he really is. You get him out of cores, now you're looking at a guy that is probably a backup to a platoon type catcher, no one that's going to actually bring sort of an impact player back into that organization. The Rockies weren't always bad. They had star talent. They had Tulo. They had Cargo. They had those guys all the way back in the day here. They just need to figure a way to either spend some money to bring the top free agents over there and then retool their system through the draft. Maybe they can get it done with a trade, but it doesn't seem like Diaz is that piece to me.
John's absolutely right. Like, everyone knows what you're doing. And this is what the poverty franchises do. They do it in fantasy football too. Like, Gabe Davis has a 4-touchdown game and they put him on the trade block, right? And then they just take the one cool thing they might have for a second and push it to the future. That's what all these small market teams seem to want to do, is that they find one good thing and decide they need to re-roll it for random, it could be mystery boxes, right? Like, they have something nice that the fans love and that he's a great story right now. So their first thought as one of these small market teams is that, oh no, we have a star. Unfortunately, that means that someone's going to take him away from us eventually anyway. So we might as well liquidate him for bullpen arms. Like, this happens every single time. And it's exactly why Howard says this team is always going to be one of those franchises.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to trade him away. I mean, you think about what you are going to get when you trade him, and it's just not enough. And why would you trade right now when you're last place in the NL West and second to last in the entire NL. Like, thank God for the Oakland A's taking that crown, or they would be the complete laughingstock of baseball. You don't get a good enough return on Diaz at this point in the season. And at the recent MLB draft, the Rockies used 14 of their 21 picks on pitchers. So even if they do move all these offensive pieces, who did they pick to bring back up? There's plenty of time to develop these new guys and still hold on to your assets. The suggestion of a trade is just dumb because it'd be a waste. They're not climbing out of the basement anytime soon. And yeah.
Diaz is also 32 years old, right? So it's not like he's a young prospect or an up and coming player that maybe a franchise drafts and said, okay, like we'll trade for him and he'll be our catcher for the next 3 or 4 years. He's aging out of the position at this point as well. So the value for him it's really just like Coop said, just like bang for the buck. Just had a big hit, just had a big day in the All-Star game, having an okay season. Capitalize. Maybe he's worth a fringe prospect. Someone's like top 10 somewhere, but the back end of the top 10, not the front end of the top 10. And the Rockies hope that they can kind of hit on somebody. They made a trade and got Nolan Jones, who's looking like a pretty good player from them. Maybe they do something like that and grab a guy that can develop in their organization. But Diaz isn't the guy.
So I've had a long-standing theory about baseball that I wanted to hit you guys with, and it started back when my Red Sox had a huge, 100-year curse, drought, whatever it is. But I wonder if maybe having parts of these stadiums, because they don't have to be uniform, having parts of these stadiums that create this crazy randomness, like a giant wall on one side, or having a tiny little stadium up, 8,000 feet in the air where everything goes out. I wonder if maybe that randomness is hurting these teams, and that maybe Howard's right, that if you build this stadium where you have to have ground ball pitchers and, at any given time, someone can hit a 3-run bomb and change everything, maybe that's not a good idea. And maybe that's why the Cubs and the Red Sox didn't win for 100 years.
Oh, and listen, that's a huge issue. We talk about the Cincinnati Reds and how, wonderful it is. But listen, there's no home park advantage for the Cincinnati Reds. There's no home park advantage for the Colorado Rockies. But again, the stadium is not the problem for the Rockies right now. We've seen them go to the playoffs early on. The problem is that management and ownership is driving this team into the ground. Yeah, they made a deal and they picked up Nolan Jones because Cleveland was kind of, not giving up on him, but right. They said that he wasn't really fitting with their culture. And so the Rockies were like, yeah, they're like the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. We'll give Chris Bryant and his back problem a 7-year, $184 million contract when he's 30 years old. It's the dumbest thing in the world. This team needs a clear-cut douching from top to bottom. Just clean it all out. Clean it all out. Like, fire everything up top and bring in people who actually understand the game of baseball. You can build this franchise. There is support. There is local support in Colorado. Every time I've been to Denver, they love their Rockies. They do. Who do they hate? They hate ownership. Why? Because they're just the product on the field is completely subpar. They masked it back in the day with Dante Bichette and Andres Galarraga and Troy Tulowitzki. They don't have any of that now. They're not willing to spend the money to bring in superstar free agents. And if that's the case, then learn how to rebuild an organization from within. Their drafting sucks. Their free agent plays suck. Everything about the way that they handle their business absolutely sucks.
You hear that, Charlie Manfort? Howard Bender and Jim Bowden are available.
Oh, dude, you give me and Jim the Colorado Rockies, we'll have a championship within 5 years. Guaranteed.
I just had a visual that I don't ever want to have. So thanks for that, Howard.
What, a full Colorado douching? It's called faithful. Get that geyser right up there, right through the organization, through their office building, have it all come out on top like a giant oil derrick, and all the executives are like falling out all over the place. Help me.
Okay, next topic.
Is there a bell? Can we ring a bell to move on?
Come on, you know it's true.
You know what happens on this show?
Give me a nicer way to say it. Give
I
me
think
a
we have
nicer
one.
way
I think
to
I
say
have
what
1
they
minute.
need to do.
Ding, next
I
topic.
know we're tight on time, guys. So let's just talk about it.
The GOAT, synonymous with Michael Jordan, Willie Mays, Tom Brady, and if Corey was here, we could talk about Babe Ruth, the mythical man himself. But in terms of the NBA, there's the debate constantly. I don't need to go over the numbers since we don't have a lot of time, but who would you consider is the GOAT? Should we just shut it down and call Michael Jordan the GOAT? John, what are your thoughts?
I mean, from a achievement standpoint, sure, Michael Jordan has all of the accolades you need to be considered the greatest of all time. But for me, and I've argued this a lot, I don't know if you put them on the court together in a one-on-one game, if Michael Jordan could defend LeBron James. LeBron James is an absolute freak athlete that can do pretty much everything that Michael Jordan can do as well. LeBron James is 6'8". He's like 260 pounds. He's an absolute monster that moves like a point guard, can handle like a point guard, can shoot despite the critics saying that he can't shoot. He can be one of the best defenders in the NBA when he wants to be. There's never been an athlete in the NBA that is like LeBron James, and LeBron James is why I think he's probably the best player in the league.
Yeah, John, to me, there's one thing that LeBron James can't do. When I think about everyone's gonna have their own personal GOAT. I think about the different sports, right? Like football is about being tough. Baseball is about having heart. Hockey's about losing teeth or something like that. And basketball, to me, has always been about being cool. It's about if you could be good at basketball and be the coolest dude, that's the pinnacle of sports to me. And Michael Jordan, while he was the best guy in the world smoking cigars, he came out with Air Jordans. He beat the Looney Tunes. The level of cool that Michael Jordan has set can never be reached. And that's why LeBron, that's the one thing he can't do that Michael Jordan can do. And no amount of Taco Tuesday TikToks is going to change that for me. So Michael Jordan, he's the GOAT. He's the coolest.
Yeah, and I think not only that, but the NBA was a lot different in Jordan's time. It was physical, it was nasty. People played hard and threw punches. I mean, it was insane. And Jordan held his own against some real powerhouse franchises and players. Jordan still balled out and got in their heads despite all of this nastiness. And that mentality is what helps put him over the top for me. He was also still in his prime when he retired. Think about what else he could have achieved if he had kept on playing. LeBron's been in the league 20 years, so obviously he's got the all-time scoring leader and all that stuff, but I think he just had more time to collect those accolades, and that's why it's Jordan for me.
I think this is the dumbest debate of all time. No doubt about it here. GOAT, who cares, right? Britt said it best. The game was a lot different back then. All sports have evolved over time. In baseball, there was the dead ball era. Then there was the live ball era. There was the steroid era. The problem is you can't compare players from different eras because they've all grown up in different times. Everything has evolved, not just the game itself, but people in general. So let's stop with the GOAT debate. It's completely unnecessary. I yield my final 10 seconds.
All right, guys, thanks. That is our show. Thank you to Howard, Britt, Coop, and John for today's show. Make sure you check out Sharp Angles Live with Rich Rebar and Ray Summerlin at noon Eastern. Have a great day.